Thank you. So I'm Henry Quinn, and this is Leading Digital Transformation at the Speed of Government. My first job right out of school was as the sole programmer for Connecticut's district courts at the federal level. I worked in a beautiful Art Deco building in New Haven that looks a lot like this picture on my next slide. I was supporting systems for our jury teams, HR, our civil and criminal dockets, our judicial opinions, our docket timelines. I was sitting on a treasure trove of data, and you might be wondering, what did you build with all that data, Henry? And the answer is absolutely nothing. I built a couple of tools for HR and got invited to go to Disney World to speak about them for a little bit, but otherwise we sat on this mountain of data and really did nothing with it until I threatened to leave and found another job. At which point a new project was built just to placate me, keep me from leaving. Getting a judge started every day takes about an hour. It's a big time investment. If you look at that across the entire country, that averages out to about $15 to $20 million a year we're just spending on judges getting ready every day, and that seemed like a problem we could solve. The catch, though, is that the app that was created was written in ColdFusion. It's a static app. It had to be in 16 courts by the end of the year and 50 the following. And again, it was written in ColdFusion in 2017, which is just insane. In order to get these applications stood up, there was no automation. Perfectly doing everything by hand, it took a week, top to bottom, to get one court onboarded. So getting 50 courts onboarded would take the entire next year, leaving us no time to work on features. It was just untenable. That's when I started talking to other developers around the country having the same issue. There's a lot of buzz about containers and how they might be able to solve a lot of our problems, and through talking to these other judiciary developers, I realized that was probably the move to get through this particular hurdle. Unfortunately, my boss said, hell no to containers. You had to set up the application the way I architected it, which was a static application, and I was supposed to be spending my time working on features. Static apps can be hard to scale, and this was just the first step of my leadership hierarchy failing me. But somehow we managed to get funding. We were an embedded startup handcuffed to an investor in DC in the administrative office who hadn't given us any money yet, but somehow had a lot of ideas on what we needed to be doing. And I guess that's just part of the politics game of working in a federal system like the district courts. But that's when I realized there were groups all over the country in the judiciary running into the same problems. We kind of had to run in the shadows like skunkworks teams and had to step out of our leadership hierarchies just to get our work done. It was infinitely easier to go a little rogue than to color inside the lines. Ask forgiveness, not permission. I was one of only 3 developers I could find on the planet who was trying to Dockerize ColdFusion, Vue, and Informix together, and with next to no documentation, it was hell on earth, but I managed to shove all this into containers, make it scalable, and make it work on Kubernetes. And that's about the point when the money started flowing. Our handler loved that we were able to make it scalable, so he started giving us money to hire a few more developers to help finish up the application. We even got invited to alpha test a new OpenShift cluster that we're trying to see could be a new deployment strategy for the entire federal court system. But again, instead of spending that money on more people, the money was spent to buy back time I was already spending on the app. I was working on this thing alone, I was building up steam. The folks in DC seemed like they really wanted to support us, but they couldn't do much besides really just cheer us on as I was going through this personal hell. However, getting to be able to spin up the whole environment with one command once we got into containers made it so I could work locally and not have to rely on one remote server set up for ColdFusion. I banged out the rest of the version 1 functionality, got it through security testing, and we were good to go. Finally able to push forward and start making actual progress. We finally hired a couple developers to focus on the code. It let me focus on getting the deployment time down from 1 week to 10 minutes. That's a 99.6% optimization savings I was not authorized to make. I had to step outside of my leadership hierarchy to fulfill my part of the mission. But like most things in government, there was a shift at the top. Someone really high up in DC resigned. The new person came in, made their passion projects a new priority, and we lost a lot of momentum. I broke all the right rules, but somehow government red tape still managed to get in the way. It's really annoying. We went from being in 5 courts with a plan for 16 more and 50 the following year to looking for resources just to onboard our next 3. In a government agency with near unlimited resources and data, we can do everything right and still lose. We could have saved $15 million a year, but it was hard to find a few thousand just in our budget. That's when I realized I needed to leave. Killed off my Vue branch, documented everything, passed all my build scripts off to the new guy, and flew to San Diego. I rented a car, drove up to Seattle. It was a really good way to clear your head. I really recommend it if everything ever gets back to normal. So I taught myself to program as I went and got all the way to needing a signature to save our government $15 million a year and got the rug yanked out from underneath me. And that was before I found my local and global tech groups and started getting involved in the community. If there's any takeaway I want you to take from this, it's think about all you can do if you take initiative, lead from the bottom, and step outside of your leadership hierarchies when you need to. With my last 15 seconds, just want to say thank you so much for tuning into DevOps Day Chicago, and I hope that some of you reach out to me to talk about gov-tech or building healthy tech communities. Thanks again.